You are dying. At 80 years old, lying on a simple bed in the academy you built, you hear in the distance the sound of young men debating ideas that you planted. The scent of olive trees drifts in through the window. Outside, Athens continues its eternal dance of politics and vanity, and you know nothing has changed. Nothing. You dedicated 60 years of your life trying to teach men to see beyond the shadows, and they remain trapped in the cave, fascinated by reflections on the back wall. Your name is Plato. You are considered the greatest philosopher who ever lived. Your dialogues will be copied for 2 millennia. Emperors and popes will quote your words. But in this moment, in this final breath, you carry a wound that never healed. You failed to save Socrates. You failed to reform Syracuse. You failed to make philosophy govern. The truth you saw so clearly never became reality, and you wonder, as the light dims, if it was worth climbing to the mouth of the cave, only to discover that no one wants to leave it. You are born in Athens, probably in the year 428 before the Common Era, though some say 427. Your birth name is Aristocles, but everyone calls you Plato, the Broad, perhaps because of your wrestler's shoulders, perhaps because of the width of your forehead. You are an aristocrat. Your father, Ariston, traces his lineage back to the last king of Athens. Your mother, Perictione, is related to Solon, the great lawgiver. You are born predestined for power. Your childhood home smells of incense and olive oil. The marble is cold beneath your bare feet on summer mornings. Slaves pass by carrying amphorae while you practice writing on wax tablets, the tip of the stylus scratching the yellowish surface. You learn music, gymnastics, poetry. Homer sings in your memory even before you understand the meaning of war, honor, destiny. Athens is at war. The Peloponnesian War has bled the city for years. You grow up hearing the names of battles and generals, but the war is a distant noise for a rich child. What you don't know, what you cannot know yet, is that this war will destroy everything Athens stands for. And from the ruins, your obsession will be born. Your body is strong. You train wrestling at the Palaestra, muscles slick with oil under the Mediterranean sun. They say you even competed in the Isthmian Games. Sweat streams down your face as you face opponents in the dust of the arena. There is a disciplined violence in you, a strength that you will later try to channel into thought. But it is poetry that first captures your soul. You write tragedies, dithyrambs, verses that attempt to capture the terrible beauty of existence. You dream of being like Aeschylus, like Sophocles, of making Athens weep and think through your words. You are 18, maybe 20 years old, when you decide you will be a poet. Then you meet Socrates. He is not handsome. Flat nose, bulging eyes, protruding stomach. He looks like a Silenus, one of those grotesque statues that open up to reveal figures of gods. He walks barefoot through the marketplaces, stops anyone, and asks, "What is justice? What is courage? What is the good?" And no one can answer. You watch him destroy certainties with simple questions, and something inside you breaks and rebuilds itself. That night, you burn your tragedies. The smell of charred papyrus fills your room. You watch the words you loved turn to ash. You will never again write poetry to be staged. You will never again seek the applause of the theater. You found something greater, something that makes poetry seem like child's play, the search for truth. Socrates becomes your teacher, not in the formal sense. He doesn't charge fees, he doesn't have a school, he doesn't write anything down. He just talks. And in these conversations, you discover that everything you thought you knew was an illusion. The politics your family practiced were unprincipled power games. Religion was baseless myth. Language itself was a trap that concealed more than it revealed. Socrates teaches you to doubt, and from doubt you begin to build. But Athens loses the war. In 404, Sparta wins. Democracy falls. 30 tyrants take power, and among them are your relatives, your cousins, men of your own blood. They invite you to join the government. You refuse. You see what they do: summary executions, confiscation of property, terror. Your cousin Critias orders Socrates to arrest an innocent man. Socrates refuses, risking his own life. You watch and learn. Power corrupts, even the well-born, especially the well-born. Democracy returns. You feel hope. Perhaps now, with the lesson of tyranny fresh in memory, Athens will govern with wisdom. You are wrong. It is the year 399 before the Common Era. You are 29 years old. The restored democracy of Athens decides to prosecute Socrates for impiety and corrupting the youth. The charges are absurd. The accusers are mediocre. But the trial happens. You are present in the courtroom. The morning sun illuminates 501 citizens seated on stone benches. The air smells of sweat and tension. Socrates defends himself alone, as he always did everything, and his defense is brilliant and disastrous. He doesn't beg. He doesn't humble himself. When convicted, he suggests as punishment that Athens give him free meals for the rest of his life, as it does for Olympic heroes. The court is not amused. The sentence is death by hemlock. You want to be present at the execution. You need to be. But a fever strikes you down in bed. While Socrates drinks the poison, surrounded by disciples, you lie delirious in a cold sweat, unable to say goodbye to the man who taught you how to think. Your friends will tell you later. He drank calmly, walked until his legs grew heavy, lay down, and his last words were about owing a rooster to Asclepius. Practical until the end. Ironic. Until the end. You never recover. The fever passes. The pain does not. You look at Athens and see a city that killed the best man it ever produced. Democracy, which should have been the government of reason, murdered reason itself. Something crystallizes inside you at that moment. Politics cannot be left in the hands of the ignorant multitude. Philosophers must govern, or rulers must philosophize. There is no other way out. You flee Athens. For 12 years, you travel. Egypt, Cyrene, southern Italy. In every place you search for wisdom. In Egypt, they say you study with priests who safeguard knowledge thousands of years old. In Italy, you meet the Pythagoreans, men who believe the universe is made of numbers, that mathematics is the language of the gods. You absorb everything: geometry, astronomy, theories about the soul and its transmigration. And you begin to write, not poetry, not dry treatises, dialogues, imaginary conversations where Socrates lives again, questions again, destroys certainties again. You resurrect your teacher in words, and through him you begin to develop your own ideas, the forms, the world of ideas, the cave. The theory is audacious. Everything we see, touch, and experience are merely shadows, imperfect copies of perfect realities existing on another plane. The chair you sit in is an imperfect imitation of the ideal chair. The justice that the courts practice is a distorted reflection of true justice. And only the philosopher, through reason, can escape the cave of appearances and contemplate the sun of truth. You return to Athens around 387. You are 41 years old, and you do something Socrates never did. You found a school, the Academy, a sacred grove dedicated to the hero Academus on the outskirts of Athens. You buy the land with your own money, you plant trees, you build simple buildings, and you open the doors to anyone who wants to learn. Above the entrance, an inscription that will become legendary: "Let no one who is ignorant of geometry enter here." Students arrive from across the Greek world, mathematicians, astronomers, future legislators. You teach through conversation, like Socrates, but also through structured lectures. The Academy has a library, gardens for contemplative walks, discussion rooms. It is the first university in the Western world, and among the students who arrive, there is a young man from Macedon. He is 17 years old, intense eyes, an intelligence that cuts like a razor. His name is Aristotle. You accept him, and he will spend 20 years studying with you. Decades later, he will be your greatest critic, but also your greatest successor. You plant seeds that you will not see bloom. The Academy prospers. Your dialogues circulate throughout Greece. You are respected, admired, quoted. This is the best moment of your life. Philosophy is alive, growing, changing minds. You have brilliant disciples, a solid institution, a legacy under construction. You should have stopped here, but the wound of Socrates still bleeds, and you still believe that philosophy can govern, that there exists somewhere a ruler who can be transformed into a philosopher, or a philosopher who can be transformed into a ruler. You still believe you can change the world. Syracuse is waiting. You are around 40 years old when you receive the first invitation. Dionysius the Elder, tyrant of Syracuse, in Sicily, wants to meet the famous philosopher from Athens. It is probably curiosity, perhaps the vanity of collecting intellectuals. But you see an opportunity. Syracuse is powerful, rich, strategic. If you manage to plant the seed of philosophy in the heart of Sicilian power, perhaps you can achieve what Athens never permitted, a philosopher ruler. The ship voyage is long. The Mediterranean smells of salt and fish. You arrive at a court of luxury and intrigue where slaves serve wine in golden goblets and conspirators whisper in dark corners. Dionysius is brutal, pragmatic, suspicious. You try to teach him about justice. He wants to know how to maintain power. You speak different languages. The situation deteriorates. Records suggest that you were too direct, that you criticize the tyranny right to the tyrant's face. Dionysius is enraged, and he does something that demonstrates exactly the kind of man he is. He sells you into slavery. You, Plato of Athens, descendant of kings, founder of the Academy, are placed in a slave market on the island of Aegina. The sun burns your skin, buyers examine your teeth, your muscles. The humiliation is total. Fortunately, a friend recognizes you and pays your ransom. You return to Athens, defeated but not broken. You should have learned. 20 years pass, the Academy flourishes, your dialogues multiply, you write The Republic, your masterpiece, a complete blueprint for an ideal city governed by philosophers. It is theory, a dream, but the dream consumes you. Then Dionysius, the elder, dies. His son, Dionysius the younger, assumes power. And a new opportunity arises. Dion, the new tyrant's brother-in-law and a former student of the Academy, writes to you. The young Dionysius is different from his father. He wants to learn. He can be molded. Come to Syracuse, Plato. This time it will be different. You are 60 years old. Your bones ache on cold mornings. The journey will be dangerous, but you go. Of course you go, because if you don't try, the entire project of philosophy will have been in vain. If you don't try, Socrates will have died for nothing. The second trip to Syracuse begins with hope. The young Dionysius seems genuinely interested. You teach geometry in the palace. You discuss justice in the gardens. For a few months, you allow hope to grow. But the politics of Syracuse are a nest of vipers. Courtiers envy your influence. Dionysius is weak, fickle, easily manipulated. He tires of philosophy. Geometry is difficult. Virtue requires effort. Wine and parties are easier, and there are whispers that Dion plans to use you as a pawn in a conspiracy to seize power. Dionysius exiles Dion, and you suddenly are alone in a hostile court, a hostage to a tyrant who no longer trusts you. You spend months practically a prisoner, trying to mediate between factions, trying to save something from the wreckage. Eventually, you manage to leave, but the experience leaves its mark on you. The third trip, a few years later, is the most desperate. Dionysius summons you again, promising reconciliation with Dion. You know it's a trap. Your friends beg you not to go. You are nearly 70 years old. The crossing could kill you, but Dion needs you. Philosophy needs one last attempt. You go, and fail again. Dionysius intends no reconciliation whatsoever. You are held in Syracuse for months, navigating between threats and empty promise. When you finally manage to escape, aided by the intercession of Pythagorean friends, you are physically exhausted and spiritually destroyed. You achieved the Academy, but you lost the hope of transforming the world. You managed to write immortal dialogues, but you never saw the justice you described. You gained brilliant disciples, but your best student, Aristotle, already disagrees with you on fundamental points. The ideal city you designed exists only on paper, and the actual rulers remain tyrants, demagogues, small men with far too much power. In your final years, you write the laws, a work darker, more pragmatic, less hopeful than the Republic. It is the blueprint for a second-best city, for a world where philosophers will never rule. Utopia gives way to the possible. The dream gives way to resignation. You grow old in the Academy. Your hair, once dark, is now white as marble. Your skin, weathered by travel and Mediterranean sun, hangs in folds over bones that ache with the changing weather. You still teach, still converse, still question. But there is a melancholy in you that the younger students cannot understand. Socrates has been dead for almost 50 years. The wound is still open. You receive news from Syracuse. Dion, your friend and hope, finally succeeded in seizing power from the pathetic Dionysius. But power corrupted him. He became what he swore to fight, and he was assassinated by his own allies. Philosophy did not save him. Nothing did. The irony crushes you. You spent your life arguing that the knowledge of the good necessarily leads to good action, that no one does evil willingly, only out of ignorance. Dion knew. You taught him. He knew the good, and yet he chose power over virtue and died because of it. Perhaps Socrates was wrong. Perhaps you are wrong. Perhaps knowledge is not enough. The final years are quiet. You write, revise, teach. Aristotle is still at the academy, but the tension between you grows. He questions the forms. He questions the world of ideas. He questions the very foundation of your thought. You argue, you defend, but you feel you are losing a battle you didn't even know you were fighting. In 348 or 347 BCE, death comes. Records are scarce concerning your final weeks. Some sources say you died during a wedding banquet, listening to a flutist play. Others that you died sleeping in peace. You are 80 or 81 years old. For the time, an extraordinarily long life. There is no record of profound last words. No final sentence to encapsulate your philosophy. Perhaps because you had already written everything you needed, or perhaps because, in the end, words failed, even you, the master of words. You are buried in the gardens of the academy, the place you built. Among the olive trees you planted, your disciples continue teaching. The school will survive for almost 900 years, until it is closed by the Christian Emperor Justinian in 529 of the Common Era. More than 800 years of continuity. No other educational institution in history will last that long, but you don't know this. You die without knowing. What happens after your eyes close for the last time is almost absurd in its magnitude. Your dialogues are copied, translated, commented on. Roman philosophers study them. Christian theologians absorb them. St. Augustine reads you and reconstructs Christianity with Platonic bricks. The material world as a shadow of the spiritual, the immortal soul seeking to return to God. Truth as a light that the eyes of the mind contemplate. Platonism merges with Christianity in such a way that, for more than 1,000 years, it will be impossible to separate one from the other. In the Renaissance, your texts are rediscovered, retranslated, and revered. The Academy of Florence, founded by Cosimo de' Medici, borrows your name. Marsilio Ficino dedicates his life to translating every word of yours into Latin. Raphael paints you in the center of the School of Athens, pointing upward toward the world of ideas, while Aristotle points downward toward the world of the senses. It is the most famous image in Western philosophy. Modern science is born in part from your insistence on mathematics as the language of the real. Galileo, Kepler, Newton, they all read you. They all absorbed the notion that behind the sensible chaos exists an intelligible order, accessible through reason. You would have laughed probably, or cried, because none of this was what you wanted. You wanted justice in Athens, not commentaries in Alexandria. You wanted philosophers governing Syracuse, not theologians quoting you in Rome. You wanted people to leave the cave, not to build libraries to discuss the geometry of the chains. 2,400 years after your death, students are still reading the Republic. They still debate whether the ideal city is utopia or dystopia. They still wonder if you were serious about the philosopher kings, or if it was irony. You are in every philosophy department in the world, in every political theory course, in every discussion about what is real and what is appearance. But the world is still governed by men who never read you, or worse, who read you and didn't understand, or even worse, who understood and didn't care. The Athenian democracy that killed Socrates has multiplied across the planet. The tyrants of Syracuse assume new names every generation. The cave remains packed, and the shadows on the wall now come from glowing screens that people prefer to contemplate. You dedicated 80 years of your life to the most difficult question there is: how should we live? And you left behind answers that humanity has not yet managed to implement. Is that failure or success? Tragedy or triumph? You built a map for a territory no one has ever visited. You drew the blueprints for a city no one has ever built. You pointed toward the sun, and most preferred to stay in the comfortable darkness. Was it worth it? 2.5 millennia have passed. Your books are still printed. Your ideas are still debated. Your name is still pronounced in classrooms, from Tokyo to Toronto. But the cave is still full. The chains still bind, and the few who manage to climb up to the light still return to tell what they saw, and are still met with disbelief, scorn, or indifference. You were right about almost everything, and it didn't make the slightest difference. Or did it? Perhaps the question is not whether you changed the world, but whether you gave some people the tools to try to change it. Perhaps the legacy is not the ideal city realized, but the possibility of it, kept alive in every mind that refuses to accept that the shadows are all there is. You died without seeing the sun you described, but you pointed toward it, and there are still those who look in the direction you indicated. Is that enough? Leave your opinion in the comments, and if you know someone stuck in the cave, share this video. Maybe it's the beginning of a climb. You lived this life, but there's another waiting for you, another choice, another destiny, another truth that no one told you. The next life is right next door. Can you bear it? If this life marked you, leave a like, share so others can experience what you just felt, and subscribe, because every week you become someone else. History doesn't wait. Will you go?